Earlier this year, I took several months off of work for the birth of my new daughter. The time leading up to that break was rather chaotic. There was a lot to do, a lot to prepare, and I piled extra projects on top of the necessary ones. I ended up working about twice as much as I usually do. It was stressful, but it also felt worth it. I was excited to be getting so much done, and I was really looking forward to taking the time off. Then my daughter was born, and suddenly my days were full to the brim with love. I spent countless hours holding her, watching her every move. I played games with my kids, read to them, and taught my oldest how to read himself. We went camping, whale watching, kayaking, hiking, and to the zoo. We spent day after lazy day picnicking at the park. I had thought that I might have trouble disconnecting from work and really enjoying my time off. But I didn't at all. In fact, I don't even have very many pictures from these past few months because I was so busy living that I didn't really have time to document. But as the summer wore on, the return to work loomed before me. I sat down to write a schedule. 20 hours of work, 10 hours of school, 7 hours of housework, 10 hours of meal prep and eating, 4 hours of exercise, and so on. It all fit, but it was way tighter than I wanted it to be. I felt like I was going to have to give up these relaxed, lazy days of summer to go back to a strict, regimented schedule. And that really didn't seem comfortable. One might suppose that I didn't have to go to a strict schedule, that I could have just gone with the flow, gotten my work done that needed to get done, gotten the housework done when I had time, but I knew that if I couldn't even get it to fit well on paper, then there was no way that if I just went with the flow and tried to make things fit, that they really would. I knew that I'd feel constantly behind and I would struggle to get done the things that needed to get done. And so I needed to at least figure out a way it would fit on paper, even if I didn't follow that schedule to the letter. And even more than just getting things to fit, there was also the struggle of order. I wanted to start my day with exercise, prayer, reading, and other personal development habits, but I also wanted to get work done while the kids were still sleeping so they didn't have to miss me so much. But I also wanted to be able to help the kids with their school first thing, because that's when they always have the best attitude and get through it the most quickly. I wanted to wake the kids up early so they could have structure and fall asleep easily at night. But I also wanted them to be able to sleep in as late as possible so that I could get as much done before they wake up. So as the summer wore on, I wrote and rewrote my schedule a dozen times. I knew I wanted the impossible. I was trying to fit more stones in my jar than there was room for and have lots of space left over. It was basically an impossible problem. So the way that I finally made this actually work was by first prioritizing and second simplifying. I had to first decide what was really most important to me, and then I had to give those things precedence, both in terms of schedule and in terms of quantity of time. And after that, everything else had to be trimmed to fit into the time that was left over. So here's what I came up with. First, I realized that while my kids are young, teaching them really is my most important work. It's important to me that they develop the important skills such as reading and math fluency that will serve them for the rest of their lives. And there's a limited window to teach them these skills easily. One thing I've learned in the last couple years of homeschooling is that my kids study best first thing in the morning. That's when they have the longest attention spans, best attitudes, and most energy. First thing in the morning, we can finish in an hour what we'd struggle to get through in 3 hours later in the day. Because success with this daily task is largely dependent on someone else's cooperation, I realized that giving in to their preferences would really be the best thing to do, even though I'd prefer to be doing some of my hardest tasks during the same window of time. My next most important work is running the business that supports my family. This is obviously very important, but it's not quite as urgent as teaching my kids. By completing this work right after school time, I realized that I could both get it done before too much of the day and my energy were gone, and also while my younger children were napping, which was a really positive thing since it meant that I wouldn't have to miss out on as much interaction with them. As I continued to work on my schedule, I realized that the only way I could really have as much time with my kids as I wanted and also have time to exercise, read, prepare healthy meals, and socialize with my friends would be if I were to significantly cut down on my working hours. There just isn't enough time in a week to work 20, 30, or 40 hours and have enough time left over to really live with all the other responsibilities that are on my plate. Of course, my company would grow faster and my income would be larger if I were to work 6 days a week for 10 hours a day. But what's the point of working if you don't leave enough time to really enjoy what you've worked to earn? So here's the schedule that I ultimately came up with. At 6:30, I wake up and I get dressed. Then I sit down and spend a few minutes studying the Bible and journaling. Then at 7:15, I do a little bit of exercise. This could be a jog around the block, it could be some kettlebell exercises, or it could be a workout video that I watch on YouTube. After exercising at 7:45, I make breakfast. Oftentimes, I start a pot of oatmeal cooking, or I might fry some eggs and put some toast in the toaster. Once breakfast is moving along, then I head downstairs to wake my kids up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I help them get dressed and use the bathroom, and then I bring them upstairs and we enjoy breakfast together. At 9 o'clock, it's time for school. So we all sit down at the dining room table, or sometimes on the couch, and we spend about an hour and a half doing the schoolwork. Right now, my oldest is in 2nd grade, and then my middle 2 children are doing pre-K work. By 11 a.m., we're done with school and the younger kids are ready for a nap. So I put them down for a nap and then I head to my office to work. This is when I get the bulk of my work done for the day. I try to work from about 11 in the morning until about 3 p.m. That's a 4-hour block of time, but I get interrupted a few times during that block. I'll generally stop to eat something for about 20 minutes or so, and I'll have to stop and nurse the baby a couple times as well. But by 3 o'clock, I head out of my office and I'm done with work for the day, except sometimes I do a tiny bit more after I put the kids to bed at night. So at this point in the day, it's 3 o'clock and it's time for me to do some housework. I'll spend 30 to 60 minutes doing some chores around the house, such as the laundry or vacuuming the floor or washing some dishes. But by 4 o'clock at the latest, I'm done with all of that and it's time for some free time. I call this time flex time, and some days I use it to exercise some more, some days I take my kids to the park, some days I bake or I do some other project around the house, and some days I just sit down and read a book. But from 4 o'clock until 5:30, it's flex time. At 5:30, I head to the kitchen to make dinner. I try to cook a healthy dinner for my family every night, and that normally takes me around 45 minutes. Whenever I'm done cooking dinner, then we sit down to eat, and we'll enjoy dinner from around 6:30 until 7. At 7, it's free time again, and at this time I often will play a game with the kids or read to the kids, or I might just read a book by myself if they're happily playing by themselves. At 8 o'clock though, it's time for them to get ready for bed. So my husband and I take turns every night. One of us will wash the dishes and the other one will put the kids to bed. After the kids are in bed, then we like to enjoy some quality time together, generally playing a game, and most often that board game is Scrabble. We've been just really enjoying this game lately and playing it almost every night. Whenever our game is done, normally around 10 p.m., I will go get ready for bed, wash my face, put on pajamas and all of that, and by 10:30 p.m. the lights are out. And this is something that's really important to me because I find that by going to bed at a reasonable time every night, I'm able to wake up in the morning at a relatively early time, feeling refreshed and ready for the next day. So I find that just going to bed at the right time sets me up for success the next day. Of course, this is not what every day looks like. Things come up, life happens, and I let my schedule shift and mold to accommodate. So this isn't a rigid rule we have to follow, but it's more like some guidelines or instruction on how to easily fit all the things I want to do into each day. We take breaks, we play, and we let life happen. But by prioritizing the most important things and minimizing the rest, we're making it all fit. And not just barely either, but comfortably.